balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Welcome back, all you whiskey warriors. Oh my gosh, so much has happened. I can't even imagine. I couldn't even put it all in the show description because, unfortunately, YouTube only allows like less than 40 or 4,950 characters or something along those lines in the description. So I'm held to a certain standard and I couldn't fit everything in. So not everything that I'm going to talk about tonight, hopefully, if I can get to it all, is in the description of the show notes, but that's okay because it really doesn't matter. All of it is just jam-packed. It wouldn't take you very long to find it. Okay. Ooh, I don't think I ever want to do that again. As you all know, it took the week off thanks to the Whiskey Warriors all getting together and saying, you know what, go ahead and take the week off. I didn't intend on it though, but that's the way things worked. And I'm kind of glad that you guys did say, hey, we'll just see you next week. Because it was just a complete mess during the week, Monday through Friday, I last week, because, I had to travel for work. I haven't done that in a while. And the airline that I took, wasn't exactly the best. Let's just say it started off with a 3-hour delay coming out of my hometown in Seattle, or my home airport, I should say, in Seattle. And then it went all the way to let's just say that particular airline is not my favorite airline, never has been, probably never will be. And unfortunately, their name is the same as the first name of this show. Okay, enough about that. But hey, I had an awesome weekend prior to that, though, with Mrs. Whiskey. And I've got some pictures and some things to talk about right after we get out of the way a few things. First of all, let's go ahead and get the Pledge of Allegiance going here. So, Amy is on tap for this. I haven't seen her in the chat yet, so I'm hoping that everything's okay with her. I would have expected her to pop in, but it's all right. I understand. So anyway, let's all, if you, God, see, I'm so far out of things. It's just off of this. All right. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and follow along with Amy as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, I thank you, Amy, for submitting that wonderful version of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your version of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself doing it in your style. And once you do, take that file, whatever it is, audio, video, whatever, send it on over to me. Send it to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. All right, and tonight's headline sponsor, of course, is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government, as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content, to learn about our historical founding, and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Take a look at this wonderful thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather. Its pages, water and tear resistant. And it is, they don't use cheap glue here, folks. They stitched the binding all the way through the leather. Check that out. Fine quality craftsmanship. In fact, they back it with a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if something does go wrong, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. My rumblers, my Wormble Whiskey Warriors, they all know it's got rounded, sexy rounded corners. Not only that, but it is Buddy tested, Buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. And my youngest Whiskey Warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you study and acquire that civics badge in scouting. Probably also will help you get your civics exam done to become a naturalized citizen and love the Constitution like all Americans should. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online today and get yours. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of what the IOTC offers. They have fantastic books and information and all kinds of things that are wonderful for our for your information about our wonderful and fantastic country that we all love. I appreciate and thank them for allowing me to be a brand ambassador or an affiliate, whatever it is that I am. I think I'm an affiliate. All right. Tonight, Bonnie, you're going to love me. Tonight I am drinking Four Roses, single barrel. Don't worry, that's not the bottom of this single barrel. I actually have another bottle sitting on the shelf, all nice and sealed for me. And it is in the Trump 2024 glass here, folks. That's right. And yes, it does take stones to drink with me, because there they are. They're right there in the bottom, as 3 Chevy likes to say. So here we go. Ah, wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Oh, I love it. All righty. Where am I? Okay. So before I get into all of the happenings during both my week as well as what's been happening all over in this wonderful country that we call home, let's go ahead and get the first segment out of the way, which of course is On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of information and factoids about this fantastic country that we call home. And tonight, we're going to talk about January 18th, liberty and union, now and forever, one and inseparable. January 18th is the birthday of Daniel Webster, born in 1782 in Salisbury, now called Franklin, New Hampshire, and remembered as one of the greatest orators of his day. Perhaps his grandest moment came in January of 1830, a time of growing discord between the North and the South. Webster, representing Massachusetts in the U.S. Senate, rose to dispute an argument by Robert Hayne of South Carolina, who asserted that states had greater sovereignty than the federal government, an argument that implied that states were free to secede if they wished. Webster's passionate but reasoned defense of the Union is considered one of the greatest speeches in the Senate's history. Generations of school children memorized the closing words of his address. When my eyes shall be turned to behold for the last time the sun in heaven, may I not see him shining on the broken and dishonored fragments of a once glorious Union, on states discovered discordant, belligerent, on a land rent with civil feuds, or drenched, it may be, in fraternal blood? Let their last feeble and lingering glance rather behold the gorgeous ensign of the Republic, now and honored throughout the earth, still full high advanced, its arms and trophies streaming in their original luster, not a stripe erased, nor polluted, not a single star obscured, bearing for its motto no such miserable interrogatory as, "What is all this worth?" nor those other words of delusion and folly, "Liberty first and Union afterwards," but everywhere, spread all over in characters of living light, blazing on all its ample folds as they float over the sea and over the land, and in every wind under the whole heavens, that other sentiment dear to every true American heart, liberty and union, now and forever, one and inseparable. That is today's On This Day in American History. You know, I'm going to have to look up that speech by Daniel Webster, done in January of 1830. See what the whole speech was about. Anyway, it's kind of interesting that, we're talking about being one and inseparable on the eve of the inauguration of 47. That's right, 47th president, Donald John Trump, coming back in for a second term. It's just fantastic. I've got something special for you guys on Monday, or at least, well, I mean, I'm going to be wearing something special for you guys on Monday. All right. Just for the fantastic inauguration of the 47th president, who was also 45 and 47. All right. We can just forget about 46. Well, at least in the next, 42 some odd hours, or 41 some odd hours, I should say, we'll be able to get rid of that. But anyway, all right, let's go back. I'm going to back up a little bit before I take off onto a tangent about Joe Biden. I got plenty enough on him coming up here. But before I do, let me go back a little bit. So Saturday night, Friday, last Friday, I announced that I would not be transmitting, or likely not transmitting, on Saturday, because it was a special weekend for Mrs. Whiskey. And I'm not necessarily, I mean, you can infer whatever you want from that, but there is a special place that we like to go for her special weekend. Now, most of the time, I don't necessarily talk a lot about myself, but I want to demonstrate or show to you, because a lot of you are not from Washington. And so I wanted to take a few minutes here and show you a very small, sleepy little town that is just an incredible place to go. Especially if, like me, you are really into things like holiday lights, and, festivities and cold and snow and all of those things that go along with it. So let me go ahead and bring this up. You guys can take a look at this. This is a place called Leavenworth, Washington. Now, it's this little Bavarian town. And what they've done is they've gone and put everything together in Bavarian style. I mean, just about, and by Bavarian, I mean like German, Austrian German kind of style. And almost every single building that is a part of the town has Bavarian elements to it. They have a lot of festivities throughout the entire year. And one of their biggest festivities is during the Christmas time, okay, where they deck out the entire town in lights. And it's just amazing to go and see. They also have all kinds of winter events, and then during the summertime, they'll do things like, well, their Oktoberfest is just fantastic over there. Okay. Amy's pointing out that Leavenworth, Washington was a setting for a Hallmark movie here. If you can remember which one, that would be awesome. But anyway, so this particular place here, this is their website. You can go to leavenworth.com. That's LEAVENWORTH. Leavenworth.com, which will of course redirect you to leavenworth.org. So maybe just go leavenworth.org, but there's all kinds of things that you can see there. They have lists of places to stay, to eat, and to shop, obviously, things that you can do. They have their festival event calendar that shows up, so on and so forth. And it's just fantastic. Now, Mrs. Whiskey and I just went over there really to just kind of shop and hang out in some of the bars and things like that, which, by the way, I believe it was Bam who passed along some, gave me a rumble rant to make sure that Mrs. Whiskey had a drink. Believe me, she had some drinks over there, one of them being on you. So thank you for that. But this is the Winter Carnival that they do, and it is just fantastic. And it's over weekends in January, and this is why we go there. And they do different celebrations and things of that nature, but they'll have people, they'll do fire dancers and just all kinds of things. It's Washington's Christmas town. Okay. So, I mean, that pretty much is it. It's just Washington Christmas town. They do, ice carvings. They've got fireworks. Actually, tomorrow is going to be their fireworks over the town. They've got all kinds of fun stuff. It's just this fantastic little place. And believe me, by little, I mean, it's small. You can walk from one end of the town to the other in probably about 15 minutes at the most. It's just incredible. And we like to go over there. And like I said, to go up there, it was Cloudy with a Chance of Christmas is the name of the movie. But one of the things that I did want to show you, so this is on the way over there. We're driving up and over the mountains. And so this is, I believe this is the Wenatchee River, which is the river that goes by the town. Okay. And my wife she loves like seeing rapids and waterfalls and all kinds of stuff. So, but this is kind of one of the things that I actually like about Washington, that I really enjoy about Washington. So for those of you that don't remember or don't know, because I didn't tell you, the weekend we spent in Leavenworth, I spent last week in Virginia, for work. That's all the details I can really give. But anyway, so I went there, and one of the things that I found is that, and one of the things that I like about Washington is the fact that it's almost always green. We don't have a lot of the deciduous trees that you find on the East Coast. And even though one of the things on my bucket list before I die is to head up to like Vermont and Maine to see the fall trees up there, but we have a lot of evergreen trees. So everything that we, 99, let's say 95% of the trees that we have over here, they are all, fir. They're fir trees, mostly here on the western half of the mountains. On the eastern half, they're pine trees. And so just to kind of give you an idea, here's a few pictures along the way. And so here's on the way over the pass. So Leavenworth is on one side of the pass. It's on the eastern side of the pass. And we live on the western side. And so here, driving the truck on the way, and we ran into snow, obviously, in the pass. So here's Leavenworth Bavarian Village. And again, this is just coming into the town. Just right there's the sign, and you can see welcome. Yeah. So, coniferous trees, as Buddy is correcting me. Whoops, sorry. Coniferous trees. Anyway, so there's Mrs. Whiskey and I hanging out, and of course I had to represent for had my American perspective on there. And as you can see, because of my trip to Virginia, I chopped off all the hair. So anyway, so there was Mrs. Whiskey and I in the town. She took the photo, and here I am trying out some of the hats. So they have a hat shop over there. And so obviously Mrs. Whiskey like, hey, try out some of the hats. They have there's a place that is literally, it's called the Hat Shop. And this particular shop that we're in right now is the house. It's I think they call it the House of Names, where they go and you can look up your name and its origins and so on and so forth. We didn't do that though. I already have some information on the origin of mine. But they did have some hats. They had this fedora here. And, so I went ahead and put it on, but, so this is the main street of the town, which they close it down. Okay. And, they close down Main Street, and they just let people walk. And along the side, there's all these shops, there's bars, there's all kinds of things. And, we went into a place called Stein, and picked up some cider and some beer. And that's where Mrs. Whiskey had her libations. So thank you, Bam, for that. And this kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like in terms of in the town. You can see how it has the Bavarian style, and every single one of these buildings they put all kinds of lights all over it. In fact, here's an idea of the lights, and as you can see, I'm representing. So anyway, and Coco, yes, we did beer steins, like actual, like massive beer steins. So there we go. Three Chevy asks what kind of cider. There were all kinds of ciders, but it was all spiked ciders. So, I mean, they had all different flavors and things like that. Also, too, keep in mind that Eastern Washington, which, by the way, not a lot of people really know this, but Eastern Washington has some really great wines that rival those from California as well. And, of course, Mrs. Whiskey, being a grape lover, meaning wine drinker, that's one of the things that goes on with it. So, but this is here's a photo again of the lights. This is really the part of the reason why I'm, I love Christmas. I love this kind of thing. And yeah, so there we go. Let's see. Okay, so this is the next day, the next morning before we ended up coming back. So this was on Sunday. And as you can see, there's a big difference between Saturday night and Sunday. I'm telling you, this place gets packed on the weekends because of all the events and everything that they've got going on. You cannot get places in town, hotels in town, if you don't go and like book out a year or two in advance. It is just that packed. So anyway, but I also too have a short little video to give you an idea of the lights. So let me go ahead and bring that up. So we were driving out of town heading to our hotel. And as you can hear, they had live music playing. So, but there's, like I said, the entire downtown is lit up. It's just fantastic. Here, let's just run that one more time so you guys can get a good look at it. So this is from the street, but the entire place is lit up. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot of snow there right now because it's all kind of melted off. But there's times where, it's got, a couple of feet of snow at times in those places. So anyway, great place to go if you get a chance and you happen to be coming into Washington or whatever. It doesn't matter what time of year. It's always just fantastic to go over there. And like I said, it's one of our favorite places to go. It's Washington's Christmas town, I guess you could say. And they leave the lights up apparently throughout the entire Winter Festival months. And so it's this huge draw. And then in the summertime too, they have like horse carriage rides and things like that. And don't forget, if you're a skier or snowboarder for the snow, you can go up to Stevens Pass, which is just like 15-20 minutes away. And they have skiing up there. They also have a bunch of like cross-country skiing, snow trails and hiking trails in the summertime and just all sorts of stuff that you can do. It's just a fantastic little town, and we go and try and go there every single year. So anyway, I mean, everybody pretty much kind of has those types of towns, but I just thought I'd bring it to you and let you see a little bit about some of the jewels that Washington does have in its crown when it comes to places like this. So, oh, Bonnie, if you like shopping, let me tell you, that town is perfect. You walk from one end to the other and you hit all kinds of little stores and hole in the walls. There's, by the way, because it's Bavarian, they have one store. If anybody likes nutcrackers, Mrs. Whiskey does, we now have 52 of them. Not that we bought all 52 this past weekend. We've gathered them throughout the years, and we now have 52 of the things. But yeah, you can go through, and I mean, they have like little eclectic shops along the way. They've got all kinds of, food and beer and wine tasting rooms, and every one of the wineries in the area, they go and they have wine tastings and stuff like that. It's just fantastic. But yeah, we picked up a nutcracker there because they've got the Nutcracker Museum there, and in the front of it, they have all kinds of nutcrackers for sale, of course. So Mrs. Whiskey was definitely in heaven. But yeah, you should probably, again, if you get a chance, go ahead and check it out. It would be awesome. All right. Not as far as I know, Bam. No, they don't go. They don't go. They don't come alive at night. Oh, I'll have to tell Mrs. Whiskey that. I never even thought about that. One for every week. That's cool. And no, Becky, it's not the musical. It's not the musical, The Nutcracker. It's actual, like, wooden carved. These things are art in and of themselves. Let's just put it that way. Nutcrackers. So anyway, one of these days, maybe next year, I'll show you all of our nutcrackers. We put them away for the most of the year, and only bring them out at Christmas. So I'll try and remember that. But anyway. Alrighty, let's go and move on to some of the things that happened. Thank you very much for all of your guys' best wishes and, saying that Mrs. Whiskey is beautiful. I think she is, but I'm biased. Anyway, so thank you all for all that. I do appreciate it. Okay, so let's move on to some of the things that happened while I was out. First of all, some of the confirmation hearings went through, and apparently, oh wow, Mark says he's got a nutcracker from Penny's. I'm assuming that's J.C. Penney's from like way back in the day. Sears and J.C. Penney's and all that from those catalogs. You know, they used to sell houses. They used to sell prefab houses that people could put together. They'd ship them to you, and you would build it and put it together yourself. That was before the government got a hold of all of the regulations that came along with building. Anyway. Okay, so here we go. All of the, or not all of them, but at least some of the confirmation hearings went through, and it looks like, and this is really good news, honestly. This is really good news for this, and that is that Pete Hegseth has apparently picked up 50 senators, and he now has enough votes for confirmation as the defense secretary. Now, I saw a couple of the videos and a couple of the Democrat morons, not Democratic, because they're not Democrats, or Democratic. They, damn it, buddy. So anyway, Pete Hegseth has picked up a critical vote. Senator Bill Cassidy announced that President-elect Donald Trump's pick to lead the Pentagon has his support. So that's good. That is a good thing, folks. I'm just telling you right now, that is a good thing. Apparently, Hegseth also picked up a key vote from Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, who was previously on the fence about talking about it. So, yeah, so that's great. That is fantastic that this has gotten done. And with Cassidy's support, Hegseth now has all the votes needed for his confirmation, which I think is just fantastic. Great place. Both Pocahontas, F-A-U-X, Pocahontas, meaning Senator Warren, and also Mazie Hirono from Hawaii. Two dingbats. Let's just put it that way. two dingbats. But anyway, they apparently were causing like all kinds of problems. I was watching some of the stuff on X, some of the things that they were saying, and yeah, they were just, they're just nuts. I mean, they're just crazy. That's all they are. Democrats have gone over the deep end. They got beat, and now they're going to do everything possible that they can to try and stop all of the good things that are coming to our country for that. But yeah, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, that's what I call her all the time, F-A-U-X, and then, of course, Pocahontas behind it. But yeah, they're just freaking nuts. They're all nuts. I think, Trump broke them in 2016. I think he's broken them even further now. So yeah, it's just, okay. Anyway, just horrible stuff, but, from them, obviously. But here's one thing that I saw that popped up in, I think it was one of the aggregator feeds that I check out. And this kind of actually sort of pisses me off. I'm going to be honest with you. And realistically, because of the fact that, all these people, all these high up politicians have all been saying, we knew that Joe Biden was not in charge. I just I mean, even on the Republican side, why didn't you effing say anything? Seriously, why? Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you bring it to the public's attention? Why didn't you climb up onto the proverbial rooftop and freaking scream it from everywhere? This just irritates the crap out of me, and I'll be honest with you, it kind of doesn't look good to me. It doesn't look good for your character, your integrity, your desire to want to push toward a better America. This is Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson says that he knew the moment that he knew where that Joe Biden was not in charge. So when he basically asked the president, apparently at a time where he was talking about it, and he just goes, sir, why did you pause LNG exports to Europe? And Biden goes, I didn't do that. And yet he had 3 weeks earlier, but he wasn't aware of what he actually signed. I mean, seriously, people, if you knew, and this is part of the problem that I have with our current set of politicians. If you knew, even back in, like, I'll even give you to like 2022. If you knew this man was not cognizant and not there, why were you not screaming from the rooftops? Why didn't you climb the mountain and holler it out the across the valley, from sea to shining sea, from everywhere? Why didn't you say something? Go on all the freaking news programs. Go on to like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan probably would have loved to talk to you about that. But you didn't. And so anything that happened during 2021 all the way to 2024, anything that happened is on all these morons who like kept it quiet. I'm just so frustrated. I'm so frustrated with everybody, even the Republicans, because again, here's Mike Johnson, the highest ranking Republican in the House. He's the speaker, for gosh sakes. And he's keeping his mind, or keeping the fact that that Biden had lost his mind to himself up until now, where it's politically expedient to be able to start talking about this stuff. This is so frustrating. This is so frustrating. I just don't understand. This is the third week of January 2024 when Johnson was invited to a meeting at the Oval Office with several of Biden's top national security advisors and cabinet chiefs. The ostensible purpose of the meeting was to persuade Johnson to support the latest aid package for Ukraine, which, by the way, he did end up doing. But Johnson also wanted to talk with the president about a recent executive order that paused the approval of new permits to export American liquefied natural gas, or LNG, to our European allies. And this was an important issue for his Louisiana constituents because, of course, Louisiana does a lot of LNG exports. In the course of the one-on-one with Biden, Johnson learned the president was unaware of his own executive order. Now, of course, the biggest thing was when the Wall Street Journal actually started telling the truth about this. I mean, this is just frustrating. It really is. From an American standing on the sidelines, looking in, being a little bit more than a casual observer for this. It's, what the hell? I mean, seriously. Seriously. So anyway, sorry, this is just frustrating. It's irritating as hell. But anyway, so we were treated during the course of last week to a couple of Biden's finalities. Finalities, yes. Biden apparently had his final farewell address. Thank God. I'm sorry. But Blaze Media has an article out where they were talking about the top oddities and falsehoods from Biden's farewell address. So here it is. Number one, he was a great liberator. Yeah. He and in particular, he's talking about the ceasefire and the hostage deal that was reached this week. Yeah, no, even the other side says that Trump and Trump's guys did it. Anyway, yeah, he was a great liberator. Sure he was. He was also the great unifier. Yeah, I seem to recall a speech that he gave in front of Independence Hall talking about how, let's just say how, those MAGA Republicans, those MAGA extremists. Yeah, he was really the great unifier. Sure he was. This is all in his head, folks. This is all completely in his head. That's all it is. And it's frustrating, of course, to no end. And then, of course, we have him being the great enforcer. Apparently, he talked a little bit about his being able to bring down violent crime to what was called a 50-year low. Except there's only one problem. And I talked about this on the program multiple times. The data on the FBI was incomplete. Many cities hadn't even reported. For an example, in the Blaze piece, they talk about here in 2022, Phoenix, New York City, and Los Angeles as examples failed to submit crime data. Yeah. Yep. And they had gone and, changed how they classified things and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And we talked here on the program about the alternative method of looking at crime data, and it was showing that it was up higher, that it hadn't come down. But hey, he's in his own freaking world. Let's just say that, which the Wall Street Journal piece, by the way, kind of defines that because of the fact that the Wall Street Journal points out that, he was insulated from a lot of those places. So anyway, and then he also apparently claimed that he was the great connector. He insinuated that his administration had something to do with delivering internet to the masses. Except there's only one problem. He put out a $42.5 billion scheme to expand broadband internet to bring it all the way to roughly 25 million people, but it turned out to be a complete dud. You remember that he was talking about, remember how he was talking about the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act with regards to the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, where they didn't go anywhere. It was handed over, by the way, to the illustrious VP to be in charge of, and she freaking failed at it. Didn't even do anything. Same thing with Pete Buttigieg's idea with all those electrical hookups, where they spent millions of dollars and only hooked up, I think, a total of 8 or 9. Yeah. Let's just say that this whole time has been nothing but a complete failure. Well, not only did he give his final address, apparently he also gave his final interview as president. And of course, this was in front of that guy O'Donnell. What's his name? Lawrence O'Donnell, I think. Another sycophantic moron. Yeah, it is Lawrence O'Donnell. But here in the Epic Times, talking about all the wonderful things, but he warned apparently of the concentration of wealth. This is another one that just kicks me in the pants. Elizabeth Warren does this all the time. She gets on X, or, well, let's be honest, her intern gets on X, and starts spouting about all this stuff about the wealthy need to pay their fair share. And then of course, Senator Bernie Sanders, his intern does the exact same thing. And they both spout all of this crap about how billionaires don't pay their fair share, and that, firefighters and nurses just, they pay more in taxes than a, than a billionaire does. And I just keep pointing out to them that, the top 5% pay almost 40% of the entire tax burden. They pay well above what they are being charged. So what Biden was warning about too is in fact, again, they're just spouting this off, but this is one of his quotes. "I have no problem with people making millions of dollars. For God's sake, pay your fair share in taxes and participation." Okay, I just want to point something out to all of these millionaires and billionaires out there, especially if you're a Democrat and you're a millionaire or a billionaire. There is not one thing, okay, that states that you cannot pay more. If all of you moronic Democrat billionaires and millionaires seem to think that you're not being charged enough by the federal government, I invite you to do one thing: donate your money to the federal effing government. Okay, you really want to do this? You really think that you're not paying your fair share? 40% or 37%, whatever it is. Oh, that's not enough. I want to pay more. Write the check, baby. Put it in. Seriously. Put it in. Because I'm telling you, the federal government, the IRS isn't going to take that gift horse in the mouth. Or, hey, even better yet, why don't you go and pay for some middle-class person's taxes? Why don't you go through and pay other people's taxes and helping them out? Find out how many back taxes other people... Oh, wait a minute. Back taxes. That means that you'd be looking at, Reverend Al Sharpton for helping him out. Anyway. Biden also claimed that he changed the basic formula for the economy. Yeah, he did. He changed the basic formula. He made it worse. He made it absolutely worse. Now, here, this statement, I'm going to tell you, this statement tells you all you need to know about the Obama years and when Biden was VP. This next statement, I'm just going to tell you right here. He says, literally, former President, this is Biden's words, former President Barack Obama did not go far enough. Wait, what? Yeah, this is what Biden says. Former President Barack Obama did not go far enough when it comes to changing the basic formula of how to make an economy work, he said. What he was talking about in particular was the 2009 Recovery Act, which included $831 billion in spending amid what is considered to be the Great Recession, at least of the most recent. Anyway, he says, Biden said we were doing the old economics from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Well, no kidding. That's why none of this worked, you moron. Anyway, he's, people like supply side economist Arthur Laffer has argued that Biden and his party have embraced what's called modern monetary theory, which holds that the United States' dominant position in the world economy means long-running deficits are acceptable. No, they're not. No, they're not acceptable. Yeah, these people, they just seem to think that government can solve everything just by putting money in. Now, remember how I was telling you about those ceasefire talks? Well, he also mentioned this as a part of his interview, But he doesn't mention the Trump envoy that went over there. Okay. Biden said that he had not spoken. So here's the thing. There was a representative of Trump's in the ceasefire talks. Okay. And Biden thinks that he negotiated it. I hate to tell you this, but you had plenty of time to negotiate a ceasefire deal, Mr. Biden. And yes, I'm calling you Mr. because as of Monday at noon, you were no longer president. I don't even care about calling you the former president. You got in there and you never acted like one. You were never part of one. So no, I'm not going to call you president. But anyway, he believes that he's the one who put it together. So yeah, it's, again, more delusion. And then he also talked a little bit about, NATO and Putin. The Russian-Ukraine war, so on and so forth. He claims that we tightened NATO and made it stronger. Yeah, sure he did. But anyway, then he also points out that he didn't want to sacrifice employment to curb inflation. Wait a minute. Hold on. He didn't want to sacrifice employment to curb inflation. Okay, let's get one thing straight. Okay. Biden and his administration fudged the numbers. They modified the numbers. In fact, almost every single one, in fact, I even think it actually is every single one of the initial jobs numbers that came out every single month got revised down. In fact, in November of just last year, in 2024, there were only 12,000 jobs created. And those 12,000 jobs were all government jobs. They had nothing to do with the private sector. So don't sit here. I mean, Biden is trying to explain why he screwed up our economy so bad. Yeah, no. And of course, Lawrence O'Donnell, being a sycophantic media moron who's just in love with Joe Biden, is not going to call him out on it. I mean, what a mess. What a mess. And he also claimed, by the way, he was like, the broad decline on the rate of inflation, according to Biden, showed that the economy had executed a soft landing. We're not soft landed. Prices are still going up. Granted, they're not going up quite as fast, but they're still going up. They should have been below 2%. If you want prices to go down and everything, you've got to really curb inflation, period. I mean, this is nuts. Speaking of that wonderful ceasefire deal, by the way, which it was reached, and hostage release is expected tomorrow, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. But that wonderful ceasefire deal that they've reached, Netanyahu has already claimed that Hamas has reneged on a couple of key items. Now, this particular ceasefire deal, there's supposed to be, I think, 3 phases, and they only have the first phase really figured out with it. But essentially, the timing and everything else, the deal is expected to begin tomorrow for this. And yes, Bonnie is correct. Hamas did it because they are scared of Trump. You honestly believe that Trump going on television and basically saying the entire, basically saying just, hey, if you don't release the hostages by the time I'm inaugurated, all hell's going to break loose in the Middle East. Again, folks, part of the reason why Trump was so effective in foreign policy is, one, he didn't take crap from other countries, number one. And number two, he was considered a unknown in the foreign world like that. that he could just pop off without an instance. And it just doesn't seem to make any sense to me that Trump's actions, his comments, the fact that he sent an envoy over there, that none of this is attached. None of these agreements, these victories are not attached to Trump, that they are fully attached to Biden. They can't be. Biden had all of this freaking time to do all of this, and he did not do it once. Nana points out, hell, even the illegal aliens are deporting themselves right now. Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Is that there are people that are taking off and leaving. But anyway, so Benjamin Netanyahu claims that Hamas was backtracking to extort concessions. Now, this is an older article because it talks about it's been that the Israeli cabinet was set to meet early on January 16th to ratify the deal that was already hammered out by negotiators. This was updated on the 16th. So Hamas, or Benjamin Netanyahu, has accused Hamas of reneging on parts of the ceasefire agreement in a bid to extort last-minute concessions. Netanyahu said the Israeli cabinet, which had been scheduled to meet on the morning of the 16th, would not meet until Hamas backed down. His office described it as a last-minute crisis. A statement from Netanyahu's office, which was emailed to the Epoch Times, where this is coming from, said Hamas reneges on parts of the agreement reached with mediators and Israel in an effort to extort last-minute concessions. The Israeli cabinet will not convene until mediators notify Israel that Hamas has accepted all elements of the agreement. So, yeah. And Hamas's leader, Sami Abu Zuhri, told the Saudi-owned Al Arabiya TV that Netanyahu's claims were unfounded. Well, of course, that's what they're going to claim. And urged Biden and the Trump administrations to oblige the Israelis to implement the agreement. Do you honestly think that the Israelis are going to necessarily listen to Biden? I mean, seriously, really? Come on. Anyway, we'll just have to kind of see what the heck happens here in terms of this. But Biden taking credit for this? No, Biden didn't do anything for this. Biden had several months to do something. It's sort of like Carter. In fact, it's exactly like Carter. Carter had over 400 days to do something with the Iran hostages. He tried one rescue attempt, and it failed, and did nothing else the other 400 days. And you think Biden's any different? Biden loved Carter. Biden bent over backwards for Carter, thought he was one of the greatest presidents in the history of our country. Yeah, that tells you a lot right there. Because believe me, Carter was not. Oh, Nana points out, too, that Biden has had over 400 days as well. And yes, 3 Chevy, it's amazing. You know, I got to tell you, it's kind of interesting having lived through like the Reagan years, although that was early in my life. But having lived through the Reagan years and hearing about Carter and Reagan and how that all came about, there are a lot of historical parallels between what's going on today with what's happening with Trump coming into office and so on and so forth, and how Trump got back into office in terms of the economy, how bad the economy was. We have, Middle East problems. It's almost as though history seems to be repeating itself all over again. So, and yeah, bam. Joe thinks that Hunter's is the smartest guy he knows. Well, I got to tell you, Bam, when you're the stupidest guy in the room, it really isn't hard to imagine that somebody else who might be just a slight bit more intelligent than you is the smartest guy that anyone might know. Anyway. All right. Well, one of the other things that Joe Biden apparently has done. Did you guys know that we now have a 28th Amendment to the Constitution? Wait, what? You mean to tell me that I got to go and buy another one of these? No, guys. Don't get all freaked out. Joe Biden's a moron. Let's just say it. Joe is a moron. Okay? Joe thinks that he was able to say clearly, hey, Equal Rights Amendment is now in place. Yeah, except there's only one problem, Joe. Only one problem. Oh, my math whiz has come back. Nana. 365 plus 105 equals 470 days. Biden has had 470 days to end the Gaza thing. But anyway. So Biden apparently seems that he can, being the magnanimous executive that he is, he can just, speak into existence. 28th Amendment. It's there. Yeah, there's only one problem. The 28th Amendment. Oh, shoot. The 28th Amendment, by the way, hold on. This is going to bug me. This is really going to bug me, this camera thing. Hold on. I got to get the camera to do something here. Okay. This way, please. There we go. Right there. And come on. Frustrates me. All right, I got to watch where I put my hands up. Anyway, so the thing that frustrates me, that's the green screen stuff. Yeah, for those of you not watching on the video and listening on the audio, it's yeah. Anyway, so here's the thing: is that Biden seems to think that he could just automatically say that the 28th Amendment is there. He's asserted that this Equal Rights Amendment, which, by the way, has been around since 1970, I think, even earlier than that. Come to think about it, let me see. Let me just take a look at my notes here. So it started. Oh yeah, back in 1972. Congress proposed the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972. So here's the thing. Oh, thanks. Nana's already, bam, she's on it. Woo. You guys keep me on my toes. I love it. So anyway, so apparently this is how he thinks. This is how he thinks this came into place. So the Equal Rights Amendment. Oh, and by the way, the actual amendment itself was first drafted in 1923. That's how long the thing has been around. Okay. So anyway, they felt, of course, that they were going to do something after the adoption of the 19th Amendment. And so a couple of people named Alice Paul and Crystal Eastman wrote it. Okay. And the version ended up finally being approved by Congress in 1972. And it was sent to the states. Okay. But here's the problem. 30, now keep in mind, we have 50 states. 3/4 of them have to approve, in other words, ratify the amendment in order for the amendment to actually become an amendment to the Constitution. 30 states almost immediately ratified it. Almost immediately. And then it sat. And what happened most recently, on January 15th of 2022, Virginia finally ratified the Equal Rights Amendment to become the 38th state to ratify it. Except there's only one problem. When Congress wrote it back in 1972, they gave a 10-year time period for the states to ratify it. They wrote in the bill that states had 10 years in which to ratify the amendment to make it into the 28th Amendment. Guess what? That didn't happen, obviously. So Joe Biden seems to think, and by the way, Joe Biden did champion this apparently while he was in the Senate. But Joe Biden apparently thinks that we now have the 28th Amendment. And it's not just him. Well, here, The Hill, okay, points out that he made a statement on X, and this is actually his statement. Let me go ahead and show you this. So this is the White House statement on it. And he goes, I have supported the Equal Rights Amendment for more than 50 years. Except there's only one problem, Joe. You only had 10 to get it in. Anyway, he says that I have long been clear that no one should be discriminated against based on their sex. We as a nation must affirm and protect women's full equality once and for all. Hey, wait a minute. I thought Democrats don't know what a woman is. Anyway, so he posted this statement and he was like, yes, it is formally added to the Constitution as the 28th Amendment. It's cleared all the necessary hurdles. Sure it has. In fact, he even his vice president even pointed this out. And is like, equality, woo, we have the 28th Amendment now. Yay! That's what she's doing it. Well, guess what? Nope. We don't. And the reason being is because, I love it when the government checks itself. The Archivist of the United States, Dr. Colleen Shogun, and Deputy Archivist William J. Bosanko released a statement saying that no, that actually isn't true. That Congress went ahead and had 10 years as a part of the original proposal when it came out in 1972. And no, it's not an amendment. It's not the amendment. They point out in 2020 and again in 2022, the Office of Legal Counsel of the U.S. Department of Justice affirmed that the ratification deadline established by Congress for the ERA is valid and enforceable. That's that 10-year limit. There you go. There is no 28th Amendment, folks. I'm sorry. Oh, there isn't. Even as much as Joe Biden wants to say, hey, we have the 28th Amendment. No, sorry. We don't. There was a 10-year time limit, Joe. Granted, 10 years for you probably passes like minutes. Well, I mean, hours. Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're that old, you kind of lose track of time. But anyway, yeah, he is just so God. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm laughing at the fact that Joe Biden and the Democrats, especially Kamala Harris, who's supposed to be smarter than Joe. Hello, she's like 50. Really? Anyway, she didn't even call him out on it. Well, Joe finishes off his term. And he finishes off his term, well, not the most likable president. No, he's not even close to being the most likable. In fact, if you recall, before I went on break, I showed you this Gallup poll. Here, let me zoom it in. Zoom it in, baby. There's this Gallup poll that basically showed the U.S. adults' historical ratings of U.S. presidents. You have John F. Kennedy at the top with a net positive 68 points. Ronald Reagan is number 2 with a net positive 39. Barack Obama follows him at a net positive 21. And so on and so on until, I mean, even Jimmy Carter is in the positive side, although he's in single digits. Donald Trump is -4 for his first term. We'll see what happens after his second. Right now, it looks like his second term is much more positively favored. But here's Joe Biden, second from the bottom of the modern historical rating president at a negative 35. Negative 35, folks. And this isn't the only poll. Now, keep in mind, this is Gallup's poll, but this isn't the only poll. Here, CNN. Ooh, sorry, that's too big. CNN did their own poll. Well, they commissioned SSRS Research to take a look at it, but CNN even did it. And, well, lo and behold, right here, January 9th through 12th, his favorable rating is 33%. Unfavorable is 58%. Okay. And 8% have no opinion. I don't know. I don't know how, anyway. Back in July, he was actually a little higher favorability at 37%. Unfavorable was 59%, and only 5% of respondents had no opinion. I mean, this basically just shows you what's going to happen here is basically Joe Biden is going to go down as the worst president of the United States in modern history. That's what's going to happen. I mean, there's no way. There is absolutely no way that you can line up this presidency with any type of success. There's just no way. Yeah. Well, thankfully we have 41 hours plus. Anyway. Well, Trump's inauguration is on Monday. Trump's inauguration is on Monday. And as usual, the left has got to find something to complain about, because that's all they do. That's all they're good at, is complaining. That's all they want to do. Complain, complain, complain. There's my math wizard again. 41 hours and 48 minutes, Nana says. So, here's the thing. Trump's inauguration is moved indoors due to freezing conditions. And what do the left do on the social medias? Trump's afraid of a little cold. Even frickin' Tim Walz got into it. He's standing out in like some goofy ass hat, and he's sitting there and he's like, oh, it's weather. It's so cold. Except there's only one problem, folks. Okay? It's going to be below freezing for the day. It's going to be snowy weather for the day. And you could possibly, and by the way, more people die, unlike what the Democrats realize, more people die from cold than they do from heat. So they're just the fact that they're moving it indoors to protect people is, again, demonstrating that this inauguration isn't as important as people's safety. So anyway, it's moving indoors because of the extreme cold weather. The event itself, this is from the Epoch Times, the event itself was scheduled to be held on the steps of the U.S. Capitol as is tradition. But it's forecasted to be 25 degrees Fahrenheit in Washington that day as Arctic winds hit the East Coast. Instead, Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance will be sworn in inside the Capitol Rotunda, which connects the Senate and the House and consists of paintings of moments of U.S. history. Trump wrote on... I lost my place. Hold on. Trump wrote on Truth Social yesterday. He said the weather forecast for Washington, D.C., with the wind chill factor, could take temperatures into severe record lows. I don't want to see people hurt or injured in any way. It is dangerous conditions for tens of thousands of law enforcement, first responders, police canines, and even horses, and hundreds of thousands of supporters that will be outside for many hours on the 20th. So, yeah. Anyway, this isn't, by the way, this isn't the only time that this has happened, by the way. This isn't the first time. So it's not like this is a rarity. It has happened before. Okay. It has happened before. So this whole thing that the left is trying to say that Trump is afraid of it because, and by the way, they were claiming that the reason why he was doing it is because he wasn't going to get the big crowds. Well, I hate to tell you this, all right? I hate to tell you this, but there have been reports of literally hundreds of thousands of people descending on DC for the event. Now, ironically, I was actually even told that, hey, maybe you should go. Yeah, no, I unfortunately, I don't think I have the money to be able to go. But anyway, the point being here is that no, Trump is not, it's not because he's afraid of the cold. It's not because of, anything other than safety concerns, because of the cold weather. Believe me, working in some of the coldest places that I've ever been, it's going to be cold, and cold is worse than heat when it comes to, people. So, anyway, so, there's apparently supposed to be about 4 days of festivities and musical performances starting, of course, today. Let's see. On the 4-day schedule, so there's a fireworks display at Trump's Club in Virginia. There's going to be a reception for cabinet nominees and a dinner that's going to be hosted by J.D. Vance. That's all tonight. Actually, it's probably already happened, considering the time difference. Sunday, so tomorrow, Trump is going to lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Later, there's going to be a Make America Great Again victory rally that's going to be held at DC's Capital One Arena. Then the president-elect is going to hold a candlelight dinner to close out the day's events. Then on Monday, begins with a service at St. John's Church in Lafayette Square, followed by the Trumps joining the Bidens for tea at the White House. Then Trump is going to take the oath of office inside the Capitol Rotunda room at noon before telling Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to get the hell out of his house. Anyway, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be before saying goodbye to them. Trump is then supposed to hold a signing ceremony near the Senate chamber to sign the formal nominations for his cabinet selections. Then the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies will host a lunch before the inaugural parade. The parade is also going to be moved inside Washington's Capital One Arena, and Trump is scheduled to make an appearance at the venue. Then he's going to travel to the White House, where he's likely going to host a ceremony to issue a batch of executive actions. Now, there was some talk of him having around 100, executive actions there that he was considering. After that, then he is supposed to attend and address 3 separate inaugural balls. The Liberty Inaugural Ball, the Commander-in-Chief's Ball, and the Starlight Ball. And by balls, I'm talking like dances, kind of, and, pomp and circumstance kind of crap. But anyway, then the inaugural celebrations will conclude with the National Prayer Service on Tuesday. So, apparently, Obama, Bush, Clinton, and Biden have all confirmed their attendance. Now, I thought Obama, Bush, and Clinton weren't going to go, but I guess I was wrong. Harris is expected to appear at the inauguration ceremony. Former First Lady, gentlemen, Michael Obama and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi are skipping. They're skipping it. Argentinian President Javier Milei is expected to attend. Trump has invited Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese regime. It's unclear whether or not Bukele will attend. Meloni said that if scheduling permitted, she would. And Xi is going to be sending an official envoy. Obviously, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos are all going to attend. They're supposed to be seated together on the platform next to Trump's cabinet. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is also reportedly attending as well. Zuckerberg later on is hosting a black tie reception with billionaire Trump allies Tillman Fertitta, Miriam Adelson, and Chicago Cubs owner Todd Ricketts. Fertitta is the owner of the Houston Rockets and Trump's pick for U.S. ambassador to Italy, while Adelson is the widow of GOP megadonor Sheldon Adelson. Of course, they've got several musical performances going on. Just to name a few, there's Carrie Underwood, Christopher Macchio, and he's a member of the classical crossover group New York Tenors, and he's going to sing the national anthem. Country music singer Lee Greenwood, who's been with him, in his song God Bless the USA, being staples at Trump campaign rallies, is going to close out the official events. The Village People apparently are going to perform at the Make America Great Again victory rally. The 3 inaugural balls will also feature musical performances. Jason Aldean, the Village People themselves, as well as a surprise mystery guest, supposedly performing at the Liberty Ball. So the Commander-in-Chief Ball is going to host the country band Rascal Flatts and singer-songwriter Parker McCallum. Country singer Gavin DeGraw will also perform at the evening's final event at the Starlight Ball. Now, here's the big one. How to watch it. Okay. NTD will broadcast the inauguration. The White House will stream the events on its website, as well as several other major networks that are all going to cover the celebrations as well. Also, too, don't forget, I know, like the Daily Wire, just about everybody from the Daily Wire is there and going to watch. So we'll just kind of have to see. But I'm sure everybody's going to be there, and it's going to be fantastic, and nothing will happen, and we'll be all good to go. All right. Okay. So I wanted to spend, well, you know what? I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold that video for another time. I'll do it on Monday. I've got a video, about 5-minute video, but I see I'm running out of time. So I've got a 5-minute video that I wanted to show you guys. It was passed on to me by somebody. Don't remember who. But Nana is asking who on Rumble will have it. I'm going to guess people like RSBN. I guess Becky down in Australia is saying that Sky News is going to cover it. But I would guess there's quite a few people on Rumble that are going to carry it. But anyway. All right. So just because of the fact that we were talking about the 28th Amendment, this question for tonight's question for whiskey is definitely apropos. So let me go ahead and bring that on. Where is it? There it is. So let's move on to tonight's question of the week. Oh, Coco is just saying, just do it. Just play the video. I'll play it after the question. I do. It kind of doesn't fit, but anyway, for everything for tonight, but I'll play it after the video or after the question of the week. Okay. So the question of the week, it comes from the venerable, always present, even though he doesn't always chat when he's present, Buddy Weiser. He writes, "Greetings, my interweb friend. I hope this email finds you well and with fair weather." Well, actually, we have cold weather, although it's great. I love cold weather. Thank you. He says, "I present to you this inquiry. In the event that a constitutional Congress has been achieved, who decides which amendments are considered? Is there a limit on the number of amendments? And who decides when the amendment process is concluded? Can regular citizens present amendments? Asking for a friend." And he says, "Thanks, BW," meaning Buddy Weiser. All right. Amending the Constitution comes from Article 5. And for those of you who watch and read, and have picked up this wonderful Constitution of the United States, you can read about Article 5, but I was lucky enough, and this is on Wikipedia. Most of the time I don't pay attention to Wikipedia, but here is a graphic that helps to explain how this happens. Article 5 states that there are two paths with which amendments can be proposed and ultimately ratified. The way that it works is in the Congress, which is the typical way of getting an amendment done, is that both houses of Congress must decide to adopt a proposed amendment. Both houses need to have a 2/3 vote. Okay. So it can't be 2/3 of however many total that is, which would be 535, because you've got the 100 from the Senate, plus you have the 435 in the House of Representatives. That's not how it works. You need 2/3 of that 100 and 2/3 of that 435 that will basically say, yes, we agree with this, and we're going to propose it to the states. Now, as we were just talking about earlier with this whole 28th Amendment, the Equal Rights Amendment, that happened back in 1972. Okay. However, when that amendment, when the Equal Rights, ERA amendment was proposed back in 1972, Congress went ahead and put a time limit on how long it can take for the states to ultimately ratify it, which is the second part of the process, which is essentially that 3/4 of the state legislatures have to ratify the amendment. So what happens here is, again, 2/3 of both houses of Congress. All right. Then you have 3/4 of the state legislatures that have to ratify the amendment. Okay. Now, Buddy is hitting me up here saying after the achievement of openings, a congressional Congress. So once Congress is convened, pretty much any congressional member can propose a constitutional amendment under the first style or the first type of amending the Constitution. Okay. And it's usually only Congress that can do this. They're the only ones that can present it. Okay. And again, 2/3 each house. Then it goes to the states for ratification, like what happened in 1972 with this supposed 28th Amendment, Equal Rights Amendment. The problem is that because of the way or the issue, and constitutionally, there is no actual time limit. But Congress itself, in the case of the ERA, they wrote a 10-year time limit. Okay. So the fact of the matter is Congress sort of screwed themselves by saying, hey, only this is, you guys got to ratify this in 10 years. And basically, the Constitution doesn't really have a time limit on any of these things. What they potentially could do is Congress could basically say, well, hey, this stays in perpetuity until such time as 3/4 of the states ratify it. Meaning that if they had written it, if Congress had written the ERA that way, then it could have gone all the way up until 2020 to get ratified. Just could have. Now, the second path that things could potentially go is what's called a convention of states. Now, this has only been used, I think, only once, maybe twice in history. The convention of states, there isn't a lot of detail as to how one is supposed to occur. It does state that if you get a majority of the states to contact Congress and say, hey, we want a convention of the states, okay, and I believe it's 3/4 of the states have to call for that. It's not just a simple majority. But in a convention of states, there's not a whole hell of a lot in terms of direction. All it states, all the Constitution says is that Congress kind of acts as the advisor over this thing. But in the convention of states, there is no like number of amendments that can be admitted or anything else, which is part of the reason why several people are trying to get a convention of states together. Because what they'd like to do is they'd like to propose multiple changes to the Constitution, including things like term limits, which we all know Congress is not going to vote, regardless of what Ted Cruz hopes for. Congress is not going to vote 2/3 in each house to limit the number of times that they can be elected. They don't want that. So Congress likely is never going to vote in their own term limits. As much as people want term limits, I doubt that's going to happen. Now, all of that being said, a convention of states could, in theory, do it. But here's the problem with the convention of states. Okay. The convention of states, unfortunately, has very little in the way of written out structure. So the danger, or the potential danger of a convention of states is essentially that there could be all kinds of amendments and all kinds of things that could go on during a convention of states that could potentially put us into some very risky territory when it comes to the Constitution and making changes to the Constitution. Now, again, the ratifying convention, again, it points out that anything that comes out of a convention of states has to have 3/4 of the states ratifying that particular amendment at any time. Actually, down at the bottom of the graphic, it tells me the ratifying convention, which of course is the constitutional or the convention of states, I should say. The convention of states has only been used once, and that was for the 21st Amendment. So again, either way, to your next point here, which is essentially whether or not, what amendments are considered, how many there are. Usually they're only offered up as a single at a time. However, as we all know, the very first 10, known as the Bill of Rights, were offered up within a couple of years of the ratification of the Constitution itself, and all 10 were passed. So realistically, there is no limit, conceivably, based on history. There's no limit as to how many of these can actually be put in. That was plainly obvious by the first 10 being all passed at the same time and ratified at the same time. So there's a lot of ambiguity up to interpretation on a lot of this, because again, I mean, even Article 5 isn't really clear on the exact process of it. It's sort of like Article 3. There isn't really a lot of stuff on the judicial branch of government. And they actually, the founders actually left a lot of the creation of all of the courts below the Supreme Court to the First Continental Congress. But anyway, so there you go. Regular citizens presenting amendments. No, not really. I mean, yes, you could, if you know somebody who's willing to like be your advocate as a part of it in either the Convention of States, which is the state legislatures getting together or the representatives getting together to go through this, versus actual Congress. So most of the time it's not a regular citizen that can propose it. That being said, people like Mark Levin have constantly said, hey, if I were to write a 28th Amendment, here's what it would have inside of it. So there you go. Now, who determines when the amendment process is concluded? Obviously, it's concluded. If it passes, it's concluded once it goes through either one of these two processes. But whether or not it fails, well, again, that depends on Congress and how they write it. So for an example, like I said, with this ERA, Congress wrote in there's a 10-year time limit to get it passed. So it's kind of up to how the amendments was written in terms of the procedure, in terms of how that goes. Hopefully that answers your question with regards to this. So, all right, I said, Coco is saying, or has said, let's go ahead and play the video. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video. Only because of the fact that I really, really like this video. This is fantastic. So to give you kind of a background in terms of what this video is, this is part of the congressional hearing on the investigation into and subsequent charging of Trump of the 34 felony counts. And yes, buddy, I agree. Whoops. Buddy, I agree. There is too much risk to open up Pandora's box, especially considering the Convention of States. I think there's a lot of people who are advocating for the Convention of States, by the way. And a lot of people think that it would be just fine, but there's not a lot of structure. There's not a lot of like, kind of, there's not a lot of guardrails there because unfortunately they didn't really describe it very well. And I think a lot of that too, and I've said it on this program too, a lot of the times the founders actually believed that most humans are going to act in such a way that is honorable and with integrity. And unfortunately, that is not the world that we live in today. So this is part of the reason why, unfortunately, many of the things that we have written in the Constitution seem to be just thrown to the wayside. And it becomes a bit of a problem. So, all right, back to the video. So I don't know where I got this, to be honest with you. I know it's on YouTube. I put the link in the show notes. It's the very first link in the show notes. But this is a fantastic line of questioning in terms of the congressional committee that is looking at the 34 felony counts, quote unquote, felony counts of Donald Trump out of New York. And, what you could do is if you have anybody who talks about, the felon for a president or whatever, you can point him to this video because this guy, he's a judge. He was, questioned about, what had happened up in New York. And, the video itself, it's about 5 minutes long, so bear with it. But it's about 5 minutes long and, you can take a listen. But this is exactly why those 34 felony counts are pretty much a bunch of crap. Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and kick this off. So this video is basically why, if anyone who says, oh, you've got a convicted felon for a president, well, this kind of explains why the entire thing is bupkis. Take a listen.
Judge Wilson, what's the statute of limitations on a misdemeanor in New York?
1 year.
The business records case is a misdemeanor, correct?
The underlying crime, the falsifying business records, yes, that's a misdemeanor charge.
So the only way to get to a felony is by committing it, or is by in concealment of another crime.
Correct.
And each one of those crimes has specific elements.
That's right.
And you have to prove, in order to get a conviction at trial, you have to prove every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, right? That's just traditionally how this works.
That is the right way to do it.
So in the indictment, did they put the underlying crime?
No, they did not. They only described it as other crimes.
Okay. And in the jury instructions, did they put the specific underlying crime?
No, the falsifying business records was described in the jury instructions. There was some brief description of the New York State election law violation, but there was no description given of the choice of three crimes. There was a description given of falsifying business records, which was pretty ironic because it was falsifying business records to falsify business records.
So, and that's also a misdemeanor, right?
That should be, yeah.
So you have 2 + 2 = 6. Like if you commit 2 misdemeanors, you get to the felony statute of limitations, which they had to get or they could have never brought the case.
That's correct. But there's some more question marks regarding the statute of limitations. It's not cut and dry because the time that Donald Trump spent out of New York could be used to toll the statute of limitations. That was the ruling in the Court of Appeals Harvey Weinstein case. He argued that the time that he spent out of California should not have told it, out of New York, that is, in California, should not have told the time limitations, but the Court of Appeals ruled against him on that issue. So that's, I think, how they get around the statute of limitations problem in this case.
So was the election law case a federal election law or state election law underlying crime?
Seemed like it was charged as both. When we got to the jury instructions, there's a violation of New York election law charged, but then there's one among the 3 charges underlying is an unspecified violation of federal election law.
And then the third one was tax violation, right?
Also unspecified.
So all 3 of those underlying crimes have significantly different elements of the crime.
That is correct.
Were any of the elements of those crimes listed?
No, not at all.
So, this is important, and it might not be as robust or anything, but when you defend a client in court, if you don't know what the elements of the crime you're defending, how do you mount a defense?
You can't. That's the very issue of fundamental fairness that I referenced. You, as a defendant, are entitled to know what the charges are against you so that you can defend against those charges. Donald Trump was never made aware of what the extent of the charges were against him until the end of the trial.
And the elements of the crime go in the jury instructions. I mean, traditionally, that's how it works. Federal court, state court in North Dakota, state court in Minnesota. I've been in all of these different jurisdictions. You actually get the elements of the underlying crime, correct?
Any time that I instructed a jury, I instructed them what the elements of the crime were.
And instead, in this case, they got a grab bag.
They got a choice of 3 when it came to the underlying crimes, and we don't even know which ones they chose. So we don't know whether or not they could have been unanimous on those 3 or not. That's another failing of the jury instruction.
So not only did we have not the elements of the crime, but we had 3 different crimes with 3 vastly different elements of the crimes.
All unspecified.
None of them in the indictment. The elements of the crimes weren't in the bill of particulars. Last hearing, I had the bill of particulars waved at me like it was some kind of magic document that flew in here with its own cape.
So the statement of facts only describes a series of allegations, a series of actions that it's believed that Donald Trump took. None of them describe any criminal activity. None of them describe any, they don't describe any elements of any crime.
And that's why you believe, as do I, that when this goes on appeal, there's going to be significant legal issues to argue that the jury never actually got them put in front of them.
I have very little doubt that this matter will be reversed on appeal and based upon these issues.
Because I've actually been I believe jury trials are still the best way to determine guilt and innocence. I just believe juries are only as good as the information put in front of them. So, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman.
So there you have it. I mean, there was never a crime. Nothing was articulated. Okay. And even so, the jury is supposed to get some sort of direction in terms of here are the elements of said crime. This is the crime, and you need to determine whether or not this individual actually did said crime under those elements. None of them got that. So if you get a chance, again, you can grab that link and you can send it off to other people. But this is why Donald Trump is not he's not guilty of anything, because there wasn't even a crime articulated within the trial. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Oh my goodness, 15 minutes over. My apologies, but there you go. So anyway, we will be back on Monday, Inauguration Day, not to mention that's also Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday as well. But we will be back on Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. If you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free once you are signed up and signed in. Make sure that you find the American Perspective channel, hit that green follow button so you get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget on your way out, hit those thumbs up buttons, those like buttons across all of my channels, whether it is Facebook, YouTube, X, and of course the aforementioned Rumble, because that helps elevate my my videos to allow you guys to expand. Everybody gets expand. I love seeing more people. Like I said, we'll see you Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.